today's guest I'm going to bring out, I'm very, very excited to have. He's not only a friend, a business partner, but a great legend of the real estate industry. He's been doing this for longer than I have been alive, and my hairdresser shut down, so you can see how old I am by the grey that's sticking out. So he's been through a number of cycles and has some great insight. So, Mr. Malcom Dingle, come and join us. Very excited to have you. Thank you for joining us. And we're going to get some sound here.
Hello, James.
There we go. Grab a seat.
Thank you.
So, Malcom, for some of our viewers that haven't been lucky enough to run into you over the last 20, 30, 40 years.
Nearly 50.
Nearly 50, there we go. So whilst I might look 50, you'll be surprised to know I'm only in my mid-40s. So Malcom, you've seen this over a number of cycles and decades. First up, let's talk about it. Change in government, Liberals, Labors, Greens, Teals, all this talk. What do we actually think is going to happen? Does it make a difference? What's your view?
James, I don't think it does. And in fact, often in real estate, the Labor Party can be, Labor governments can be very helpful to real estate. But in an overall sense, I don't think it makes a lot of difference. The government have got a situation to contend with. They have to contend with that. Consumers want to buy houses. People want to rent houses, and that's a problem that the governments always need to contend with. And I think it'll keep on going much the same. And in fact, if anything, in the commentary I've had with a lot of people since the election, I think it'll improve in the short term.
Good. And that's just because our logo, Dingle Partners, has got a bit of red on. We like to see some red out there, or maybe, you're just feeling, change sometimes does.
I think the election is done, and we've now got some certainty for the next 3 years. So that at least helps people know what they have to contend with.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is true. Very often people make more of an issue out of it than it really is, just because the
Correct.
Uncertainty, we like to know where things are going.
And the press beat it up all the time. Prior to the election, there's press articles one way and press articles another way, and now it's all over. So we can settle down to seeing some stability.
God forbid you can't believe a headline in the newspaper. I mean, it's a funny world we live in. So, let's cut to the chase then. The market, you've got your hands dirty every single day, every single weekend. For those of you that don't know, I've never come across someone who works as hard as Malcom does. When you overlay how long he's been doing this for, while I'm having an afternoon nap on the sofa on Sunday afternoon, without fail at about 3 p.m. every single Saturday, Malcom calls, tells me the sales results, says this is what's been going on, and I'm still in a stupor. So when you're out there, you're on the ground, you're feeling what's happening, what is the vibe and what is really happening with the market from someone that's actually out there doing it rather than these commentators?
Well, James, we focus on the inner suburbs, as you know, and it's not all the same. There are activities going on in the city in the apartment market for one group of people. South Bank's another area, and it's a different dynamic. The inner areas like Richmond and Fitzroy, they are different again. But in an overall sense, the property leasing market is going really strongly in the inner city area. Our vacancy during COVID was enormous, and now, as I speak to you now, we've got virtually no vacant properties in the South Bank City, Carlton, Richmond area. There's very little vacant property, so rents are now starting to go up again quite steadily, and I expect that to continue. Over the next 2 years, we'll see rents increase even more rapidly than they are now to get back to the situation we're in before COVID, and even beyond that. From a sales point of view, the demand is strong. Interest along the South Bank area in Richmond is particularly strong. CBD, not as strong, and it depends on what sector of the market you're in. There's a lot of one-bedroom apartments on the market at the present time. Very, very few of the quality 2 bedrooms and even larger. There are not many 3-bedroom apartments on the market, so there's good demand for those.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, you said a lot there and I want to unpack some of those, but I remember a long time ago, my first job as a real estate agent, and, my boss told me something that he said, a good quality property will always hold its value, but it's the ones that are perhaps inferior, have got issues with location that in the boom times, they'll look good. In the bad times, they'll really sort of show where they are. And is that what you're sort of seeing with some of these older apartments, or perhaps ones that are in less desirable designs and so forth? Are they the ones that are kind of suffering, and the good stuff is still going okay?
A little bit that way. We have now the added element, though, about the issue on cladding in the inner city area. And a number of body corporates haven't come to terms with the cladding, and that puts buyers off in a little way. And the uncertainty is what puts them off. So what I'd suggest, if you're involved in a body corporate, get the body corporate people to make a decision and grapple with that, because as soon as it's a certainty and we know what the cost is, people go ahead and buy anyway.
Yeah.
So that's the only other element that is holding some people back at the present time. But I mean, generally, I would say the inner city marketplace is positioned to do exceptionally well over the next couple of years. There's a reduced supply and an increased demand, and that always means that prices will go up and rents will go up.
I remember that from year 7 economics, drawing demand and supply. It was a pretty basic formula. So the other thing that you talked about there was, really positively about where you're seeing rents and vacancies compared to where they were, 12, 18, 24 months ago. Investors were pretty much non-existent as buyers, over the last period. Are you starting to see that it's sort of the switched on and smarter people that are realizing there's an opportunity now to get in at the ground level, or are people still a little bit unsure about where the rental market might go?
I think it's fair to say the more positive investors are running around the marketplace now. They can see that the yields are going to increase because the rents are increasing and prices are not going up as rapidly as rents. So that provides a particularly good opportunity, I think, for the smarter investor to get into the marketplace while that opportunity is there now.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, if we sort of think about why we saw such a big vacancy, we've talked about it a number of times here before. And I know you and I often discuss about how, whilst the students and overseas students was definitely an impact, it was the serviced apartment, Airbnb type tenants as well that disappeared. Not having the events happening meant all of those sort of younger generation that would work in those events that were renting it. If we've been able to backfill all of that supply without all of that last year, I mean, is that why you're so positive, thinking that, as the world goes back to normal, people are back in the city? I mean, today we normally don't see anyone walking past here. It's like a freeway outside in terms of the people. Is that sort of why you're so positive that, all that demand's got to come back, but what they left has already been taken up?
It's an interesting comment, because I don't know what the numbers are off the top of my head, but I know a lot of the Asian students have not come back into Melbourne, and yet the available apartments, the numbers are just disappearing. So when those Asian students do start to get back into town, there'll be less for them to choose from, so the rents will go up. But a lot of those people are buyers as well, so they will increase the demand for stock that they want to own to live in. And I think that'll again be another motivator for people to move more quickly, because the available stock will be taken up.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's another factor. I sort of hear it a lot at the sales meetings where you talk about you've just got a new listing. It was an investment property, and lo and behold, on the first open, the existing tenant says, "Hey, I love it so much, I want to buy it." I mean, is that sort of where you're seeing people are coming more and more, seeing that opportunity with interest rates, whilst maybe they're going up, are still low, that that change from being a renter to an owner is happening a bit quicker?
Maybe. And I think the commentary about interest rates is an interesting one, because while they've been low for a long time, they've been lower than, if you take the average over the last 50 years, they've been exceedingly low. It wasn't that long ago that we had interest rates consistently in the 6, 7, 8% mark. And I think we're heading back more towards that, which is probably a more normal market. So we've had a really significant benefit in low interest rates now for the last few years, and that will not continue. But it's nothing to be afraid of. I mean, everybody's still able to buy a property if they're able to save their deposit and get things going. So I don't think that will be a major impediment for most people who want to buy in the next few years.
Yeah. I mean, I know myself, back in early 2000s, I was paying 8-9%, and somehow I did it. It would almost be horrific if I mentioned that to some of the younger staff now that are paying 2 or 3%, that they could ever imagine that, but we did it somehow. So yeah. Now I want to sort of just move through and think about it. One of the great things about having the experience that you've got is having seen a number of cycles. Is there any consistent trends that you've seen across those? What sort of insight can you give everyone on the call today in terms of, is there anything you can say this happens no matter what? Is it, who knows? What have you sort of seen consistently happen? Or not?
I don't know that there's any real consistency in these rises and falls in activity in the marketplace. Obviously, interest rates has a bearing on it. Some of that's psychological. After the interest rate adjustments are made, we all get used to it and we get on with business. There's nothing there that stands out to me as being a factor that will override all rises and falls. I mean, it's the circumstances are different each time.
Yeah. So for those people that are obsessed with thinking this happened this time, your advice to them is everything's different. The world changes every day. I mean, I think the politicians would realise that, particularly Liberal Party, they missed the mark and how it's changed. And I guess that's the same you're saying with the property market, that what you experienced 10 years ago, 20 years ago,
it's very different.
Has no little bearing on here.
We just have to handle the situation that we have today and come to terms with it, work it out the best way we can, and then get on with life.
Okay. So for most of the buyers and people we've got on the call today, we have a lot of first home buyers on here, and I know a lot of people are looking to upgrade. Where do you sort of see, or what's your view in terms of where some of the really good opportunities are to sort of be buying in terms of the types or locations or whatever it is that in your mind, share some secrets, some of the things that you think about late at night. Where do you think some of these people should be thinking and or looking?
Well, for a first home buyer, apartments are still a very attractive proposition. I think certainly in the inner suburbs, and it's an easy way to get into the market. I mean, you can buy a one-bedroom apartment as a starter for somewhere around 400,000. In some cases, a bit less than that. Depends on the quality of the unit and where it is. But to buy an apartment for less than $400,000 is a good way of getting into the property ownership market without it breaking the bank and without having to rely on the bank of mum and dad. That's probably the best place to start, and then you move up from there. You've probably done it. I did it. We bought a little one-bedroom flat to start off with, and you'd be horrified if I told you how little it was at that particular time, but it was still an effort to get it.
Yeah.
And then we started paying that off, built our equity, sold it, and bought another property. And that's how a lot of people get into the housing market and build themselves a home. You move up from a smaller property to a larger property.
I mean, some of my happiest times were in my one-bedroom apartment. There was no gutters to clean, no gardens to look after. Someone took the rubbish bins out. Even cleaning was easy. One toilet. It may have been the kids that killed it for me with that. So, I guess I take from that at the end of the day, buy what you can afford, but do something. Don't sit on the sidelines waiting.
Get into it. It'll be different in a couple of years' time. And if I'm any judge, I would say the prices will increase steadily over the next couple of years, and that'll increase from investment property as well as owner-occupied property.
Okay, good. I was going to ask you sort of what your predictions were in terms of rents and prices. So you're definitely thinking that the naysayers that are out there saying we're going to have drops of 20, 30% in the next years, that's all rubbish in your view?
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't possibly see that happening.
I mean, they did say that in the start of 2020, and look at what happened over the last 2 years. So,
in some places, the market went backwards during COVID, but in an overall sense, it did not.
Yep. Okay. And so then, we talked at the start about rents. You're definitely seeing, for most people, they should be expecting to see that growth coming through in the rents over the next few years.
They'll come through whether they expect to see it or not.
Good. I like that.
That's happening.
And if you're not, then make sure you give Malcom a call, because we do have one of the largest rent rolls. And I know you're very, very hands-on, as I mentioned before. And it's interesting for any of you landlords out there to know that whilst Malcolm will admit he's not actually there managing your property, he loves the data, you're studying those rents, and I hear you hounding the branch managers, the property managers every day. We've got to get $5 a week more, $10 a week more. And that's just something, because you can feel it, you know it, and you've seen it happen before. So that's I think great, not only for your landlords, but it's something that people should be expecting to happen over the next couple of years.
That's absolutely right, and it's certainly heading that way.
And you need a bit of extra money, because no one complains having that, do they? All right. Well, I think I've covered off. I've been trying to check here on the iPad everyone's questions. So if we have missed any of them, I will check in the comments and the chat. So leave it wherever you prefer and whatever medium you're on, and we will come back to you directly. Malcolm is obviously a busy man, and he's about to go and probably sell another 3 or 4 houses this afternoon before taking your dogs for a walk and maybe having a quick, what do you got, Pilates this afternoon probably?
Pilates at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock.
There we go. So he's got a couple of hours to do a few deals. So Malcolm, thank you very much for joining us. Always good to have you on.
Thanks, James.
And really appreciate you spending time. And for everyone out there, this is a rare opportunity to get some insights. So if you didn't catch it all, I will put the recording up later so that you can catch it again. All right. Thank you very much, Malcolm. Okay, everyone. So that, I hope, was really, really valuable and gave you some insights into what you should be expecting, what you can be feeling around the countryside, and particularly here in Melbourne.